As an offensive coordinator, is there an art to calling a game?
No, there is no art. Is calling plays is the most overrated thing in all of. I know I'm saying a bunch of things are overrated. Calling plays is overrated, but game planning is not overrated.
Yeah.
Understanding what your opponent does and how to approach that, how to attack it, what should work against that, and how to adjust, those things are not overrated. And so your this is I can't I'm going to say you're Andy Reid's of the world. Okay, I probably shouldn't include him in this conversation. Okay, because maybe he is an artist when it comes to it, but I guarantee you he's a great game planner before he is a great play caller.
Yeah.
Right. And so they've got a plan as they enter that game. But it's from your -10 to the +20, it's you're running your base offense, right? You're running your plays. You just kind of dressed them up the way that you think gives you an advantage against this team. Where you make your money as a play caller is situationally in the red zone, third downs, 2-minute type stuff. That's where you make your money. That's where it becomes more of an art form, more of you have to be on top of what you're doing. But the rest of it, you're running your base offense. And if you did a good job during the week of understanding how to approach your opponent, then you're probably going to do a good job on game day of actually, executing the game plan.
I'm actually glad you mentioned that. Situationally is the key aspect of it because I got some questions, especially coming from a defensive mind, and maybe you could help explain what's going on in certain circumstances. But one of the questions I want to ask situationally is what's the thought process running sprint out on in the red zone?
Well, it's
Oh,
a quick hitter, right? And
yeah.
it makes it a simple
That's
read, like
limited
either
space though.
right. It's either one, this guy's open or he's not, and then it's probably 1 to 2, and the ball's coming out, and if it's not there, throw it away. But a lot of times, like we had back-to-back 2-point plays in the Paris game. They hit one against us, and then we hit one against them, and it was the same play, and it was both sprint to the right with a quick out. And there's it's one-on-one, right? And if I think my dude can beat that guy, and if I know if I get into a certain formation, they might give me this leverage or that leverage, then yeah, let's do it. All right. I'm also not a huge fan of sprint out. And we're fortunate that we don't have to get into that world because we've got a good offensive line. Some teams, you get forced out of
Yeah.
the pocket because you're just not
Definitely
good
a
up
way to
front.
it's definitely a way to hide some deficiencies on the O line.
Yeah. But it takes away, you do take away about half that field. Like,
Yeah.
we used to run back in the day, we'd run sprint out and we'd have like a little quick out and a flag route in behind it and a shallow cross coming as the check down. And that shallow cross got hit one time in my 7 years in Atlanta. Like it was either going to that quick out or it was getting thrown away. And I'm not a big fan of it. It's just not something that we typically do, but some teams do it and some teams have success with it. It's all a matter of just what you practice and what you get good at.
Well, I'm glad we agree on that because I mean I'm not calling it, but I'm just like, why are they doing that? I don't understand. Another thing that I think is getting a little overrated and almost like a throwaway play is, your third and longs. It's, natural running back screen or draw. Is that more so just, you know, field position for, setting up the punt, or are you looking to seriously thinking that maybe this could hit and maybe we get some type of gain out of it, maybe go for it or we get the first down. But I feel like now it's just so obvious. Like, yeah, it's not 100%, but it's like watch screen, watch draw. Like, what are your thought process on that?
Well, and that's been universal since I was in high school.
Yeah, I know.
Screen and draw, right? Alert, screen, and draw. And the reason is like third and long, the defense knows you're throwing the ball, right? And so all of a sudden, especially in our league, you start getting all the drop eight and like where are you really going to throw that ball? And so the safe call, the safe call is the screen, the safe call is the draw, because if you try to throw into that cover, something could go horribly wrong where you're better off punting than throwing a pick, right? And so I get it. I do understand why teams do that, and we do some of that. Um, Game planning third down is a real pain in the butt because there's times where you're like they're dropping eight, like that's designed to not. There's nowhere to throw the ball when they drop eight,
Yeah.
and so you're trying to figure out where you need to go with it, where maybe they're weak in their drop eight. But that's why it exists, is that it's just defense is geared up to stop the pass, right? And so you're just what's the safest thing I can do, and just praying to God I can get that first down or get close to it and go for it on fourth.
No, I hear you. I think one thing that I don't see most teams do anymore is sprint draw. I feel like sprint draw used to hit a lot. Maybe this is just I'm dating myself. This is just a back in the thing type of situation. But I feel like not a lot of teams utilize sprint draw. Obviously, when it comes to screen, you're seeing more tunnel screen, bubble screens, rocket screens, and the screen game is developed. But now it's just like I don't feel like the draw game has, took the next step in that sense. And there's not much you could do from it, but you still there's a variety of things you could go in that aspect of it.
Oh
Um,
shoot, you're old school. Sprint draw is old school. Like you
yeah.
definitely dated yourself. It's funny you say that. Our offensive line coach in Barcelona, I'll give a shout out to Coach Cat right here.
Shout out
There
Coach
was like
Cat.
from like week 6 on, he was like, "Should we run sprint draw this week? Like we could do sprint draw." And he'd pull up the old YouTube clips of them running it when he's at Texas State, and it looked good. Like it looked, and it's a funny looking play, right? But this thing's
Yeah.
hitting every single time, and I'm
Yeah.
like, "Damn, it looks good." Like I've never been on a team that's done it, and like I don't know that we need to add new stuff. And if we're throwing the ball, like we're probably best off, just Zach just take off running whatever. But I won't lie, it was tempting. It was tempting to put in the old school sprint draw back in the day there.
Yeah, definitely a 90s baby. Just for fans now, and maybe they don't even realize I grew up in when people in high school were still running the wing T offense, which has developed to no spread, no huddle, a whole bunch of stuff now, but that's a topic for another day. Last thing I wanted to get into in regards to situational ball is, similar to what we mentioned with, screen game, draw game, is it almost is the only I mean, how do I want to phrase this? Coming off a turnover is, we have to take a big shot just for a momentum swing, or because I feel like, that's one of those things where it's like, you get a turnover, hey, watch them take a shot, watch them take a shot. And most obviously it's a common trend, and maybe it's something that's been in the game for, a while, just like we just mentioned. But is that more times just, you're trying to capitalize on the momentum from getting a turnover?
Yeah, I think that maybe that's part of the equation. The biggest part of the equation on shot plays, the way I learned it, the way I came up is so you get that turnover, right? And you're probably around midfield-ish.
Yeah.
Okay, so you call that shot play, it's probably going to be a touchdown. You're not going to waste it and get down to the 5, and all of a sudden you got to execute your way into the end zone. So it's probably going to be a touchdown. And if it doesn't hit, now you got second, and say you end up having to punt, at least you still maintain that favorable field position. Like we were playing Munich this year at home, and they got the ball just past the 50-yard line. And I was like, here comes the shot. And sure enough, they took the shot deep. And one of our guys like, how'd you know? And I was like, that's an NFL thing, man. You cross that 50, like, Coach Shoup coming from the NFL. I'm like, I know they're taking a shot right now
Yeah.
because that's what everybody in the NFL does. You get across that 50, you're taking a rip at it because if it doesn't hit, the punt has to come. You're hoping you pin them down there.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's funny because it's like, these are tendencies that are like, I feel like at least in America, and maybe it's developed in Europe. I haven't been in Europe in a couple of years, but they're like commonly known, but still being executed, even at the highest level when it comes to like the NFL and stuff like that. So I'm glad you brought up situational because that's where I wanted to go, and I had to. You helped me understand some aspect of why certain things are still the way they are in terms of seeing the game from an offensive mindset.